Chapter 411 Heavily Injured. At this moment, Kang Chia was lying beside a large skyscraping tree, and the thick vines on the tree were wrapped around one of his feet, hanging him in midair, while his line of sight was just right to see the spectacular and incomparable waterfall. Staring at this huge waterfall, Kang Chia's pupils suddenly shrunk, his consciousness finally clearing over, and a tidal wave of memories came with him. The dawn-breaking immortal mansion, eldest brother, elder Chiagong, blood, St. King, as well as Emperor Don's voice. Dan Huang, yes, where is Dan Huang? Kang Chia was suddenly startled. His divine thoughts probed into his body, and the first thing he saw was the badly injured inner mansion, and next to the tattered and torn dantian, a small green-colored tripod emitted a faint glow. Kang Chia's divine thoughts immediately probed into the reverse heavenly cauldron and called out to the Dan Emperor, but there was no sound from the Dan Emperor. However, in a moment's time, he saw the Dan Emperor who had fainted to death in the reverse heavenly cauldron. The Dan Emperor's Yuanying was fine, but the Yuantian fluctuation was very weak, falling into a deep slumber. As his divine thoughts exited the inverse heavenly cauldron, Kang Chia opened his eyes once again with a somewhat saddened face. The Dan Emperor's voice that he heard when he fell into a coma was not an illusion. The Dan Emperor had used up a huge amount of his soul power because he had helped him escape into the Nine Heavens illusionary realm, and at this time he had already fallen into a deep slumber. This indicated that he would not be able to contact the Dan Emperor for a very long period of time in the future, which made him a little less adaptable and feel a trace of uncertainty. But this trace of uncertainty immediately disappeared, and Kang Chia's eyes, once again, became incomparably determined. The me of today, do I still need to rely on the Dan Emperor? In a low voice, Kang Chia stood up and looked at the huge waterfall not far away. Perhaps he had a destiny with the waterfall in his life. At the back of the heavy Iron King's royal residence, it was beside the waterfall that he had met Little Gold, and then met the Dan Emperor, beginning his splendid path of cultivation. Subsequently, at Dark Gold Peak, he also lived next to the waterfall and began a long period of sect life. Now, he saw the waterfall once again, and he was in a somewhat unfavorable situation, as he was already in the Nine Heavens illusionary realm. At this point, let's not talk about how he would be able to leave the Nine Heavens illusionary realm. It was rumored that the Nine Heavens illusionary realm was extremely dangerous, which was very bad news for his current state. Dragging his tired body, Kang Chia trudged over to a boulder next to the waterfall, sat down on his knees, and began to probe his physical condition. It was fine if he didn't look, but at this glance, Kang Chia almost fainted. At this moment, his body was simply a mess. His meridians were bursting. His inner sanctum was in chaos. His dantian was broken, and his true chair was all gone. Aside from his physical body being somewhat good under the repair of Kang Chia's overbearing blood, his situation at this moment was simply bad to the extreme. This time it's miserable. Kang Chia's heart sank. With such a serious situation, if he were outside, he would have ducked into the Heavenly Tao sect at the first opportunity, and then closed down to heal his injuries. But now that he was in the Nine Heavens mirage realm, who knew what dangers existed around him, and his heart couldn't help but feel a little worried. It seems like I have to find a safe place and condition myself. As long as I recover some of my true essence, I'll be able to open the Dawnbreaker Immortal Mansion. I also don't know how this girl Jiao is doing in the Immortal Mansion. I hope that the Blood St. King's last strike didn't cause much damage to her. But there are many treasures in the Broken Dawn Immortal Mansion, so even if she has any injuries, she'll be able to recover quickly. Kang Chia mused, and in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a little envious of Jiao Linga. In the Breaking Dawn Immortal Mansion, there were all sorts of treasures, and those treasures were enough for him to recover from his injuries. But it was a pity that he was now completely devoid of true essence, and he couldn't open the breaking dawn immortal mansion at all. Not to mention the immortal mansion. Even if it was a spatial ring, he couldn't open it now. Kang Chon's strength was now completely at a low ebb, and without true essence, he was unable to use any divine abilities. Although his physical body was comparable to an extreme treasure weapon, because of the heavy trauma he had received, the power he was able to exert at the moment was limited, and was only equivalent to the Jidan stage. Think about how tragic it would be for a strong person who had just been promoted to the divine separation stage, and possessed the strength of a great circle of the divine separation stage to only be able to exert the power of the Jidan stage at this moment. Kang Chia was so depressed that he wanted to cry. Depressed as he was, looking at the quiet forest around him, he felt it was better to find a place to recover from his injuries first. Although the power of the Jidan stage was a bit weak for him, using his two fists to open up a simple cave was still a breeze. Kang Chia chose the location to build the cave next to the waterfall. After building the cave, he moved boulders to seal the entrance of the cave, and then began to meditate to recover from his injuries. Firstly, Kang Chia began to absorb the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual chair, preparing to refine a trace of true essence first. As long as he had true essence, he would be able to open the broken dawn immortal mansion, and then he would be able to make use of the huge resources within the immortal mansion to recover from his injuries. To know, in the broken dawn immortal mansion, there was also an immortal pool filled with extremely high quality spirit liquid. As long as he took a dip in that pool, Kang Chia believed that his injuries would recover in less than a year. It was just that the idea was good, but the cruelty of reality made Kang Chia suffer a blow. Although the heaven and earth aura here was thick, even a little thicker than outside, no matter how Kang Chia absorbed it, he couldn't absorb it. To be precise, it wasn't that Kang Chia couldn't absorb the aura, but the aura that was absorbed by him was absorbed by all of his flesh as it passed through his flesh. In this way, although his fleshly injuries were somewhat recovered, there was still no half of his true essence in his body. How could this be? Kang Chon's face was full of doubts. His heart was filled with puzzlement. It was clear that he could absorb auras. But why would these auras be actively absorbed by his fleshly body, and not a single trace of it was absorbed? One must know that outside, without his control, it was impossible for the physical body to actively absorb the aura. Strange. Could it be that the aura here is different? Kang Chia frowned and pondered. If he didn't solve this problem, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to recover his true essence. Once there was no true essence, then the broken dawn immortal mansion wouldn't be able to be opened, and he wouldn't even be able to leave this damned place if he wanted to. This was a serious problem. Kang Chon's face began to stare, his eyes somewhat gloomy. After that, he tried for a long time and used many methods, but without exception, all the aura that he absorbed was completely absorbed by his flesh. Not a single trace of it was left. It seems like trying to recover his true essence is currently impossible. Kang Chon's face was a little heavy, although this could also restore his physical body first, but relying on absorbing the spiritual chair from the heavens and earth to restore his physical body. I'm afraid he would have to meditate and cultivate for 100 years here before he could do so. 5 years and 10 years, Kang Chia can still be quiet and cultivate, but 100 years... Kang Chia shook his head. Let him stay here quietly and motionless for 100 years. This is not as good as killing him. Of course, Kang Chia is not impatient, but he's in a hurry. To leave the 9 heavens illusionary realm, cannot have 100 years to waste here. Thinking about it again and again, Kang Chia decided to leave this place first. It seemed like he could find some humans. Although the 9 heavens mirage realm was a forbidden place, there were many cultivators who had mistakenly entered in the past. So it was hard to guarantee that there weren't any traces of some humans. Perhaps it was possible to find a shortcut to recover from the injuries here. It's a pity that the Dan Emperor is in a deep sleep. Otherwise it would be possible to ask him. After all, he's been here before. Kang Tia suddenly sighed. There was an old man in the family. If there was a treasure, now that there was no Dan Emperor, he suddenly felt a lot more trouble. Leaving the cave that had only been opened not long ago and bidding farewell to this incomparably spectacular waterfall, Kang Tia walked towards the direction of the rising sun. The sun rose in the east, and the heavenly Tao sect belonged to the east of the flood continent, so Kang Tia chose the east. In the middle of the dense forest, there was originally no road. Kang Tia went all the way through the thorns and thistles and hardened a path. The forest is quiet. Occasionally, there are some small animals intruded, are far from avoiding Kang Tia. Of course, there were also some ungrateful behemoths, such as the bloodthirsty tiger, overlord lion, snow-cloud leopard, and other ferocious beasts that were prepared to make dinner out of Kang Tia. But unfortunately, all of these behemoths ended up becoming Kang Tia's dinner. On this road all the way forward, Kang Tia didn't stop for a moment at a time. And finally, after a month, he heard the sound of some humans talking.